The storm had eaten the horizon. Lightning cracked so close it split the comms tower in half, and every radar screen at Falcon Command went black at once. No pings, no telemetry, no signal from the A-10 that had gone in alone. Someone in the control room whispered, "We lost Specter." But out there, in the boiling dark over the ridge, something metallic still roared against the wind. You're watching the Scape, where silent heroes return from the edge of storms. If you're new here, welcome. Tell us where you're watching from and settle in. The sky above the Kunar Valley was a bruise, black, swollen, and alive. Rain slashed sideways across the flight line as the last A-10s were ordered to stand down. Every monitor screamed weather lockout. Every commander signed abort. But Elise Ward stood at the foot of her aircraft, helmet tucked under one arm, listening to the sound of distant artillery through the storm. It wasn't thunder. It was the SEAL team pinned near the ridge. Her call sign, Specter, glowed faintly on the side of the fuselage, half hidden beneath oil streaks. She'd earned it years ago for the way she could vanish from radar and reappear exactly where she was needed. Now that name felt like prophecy. Ground crews shouted over the wind, "Command says all flights grounded." Elise didn't answer. She pressed one hand to the cold titanium skin of the hog. The metal shuddered as if alive. Then she climbed the ladder. Inside the cockpit, water hissed against the canopy. Displays blinked erratically. She began power-up anyway. Battery, fuel pumps, APU. The right engine coughed, caught, and growled into the storm. One by one, warning lights bled red across the panel, but her voice stayed level. Specter 1, systems nominal, ready to taxi. No reply, just static. Downrange, the SEAL team crouched behind shattered stone. Their radio crackled in broken bursts. "This is Ghost Team. Request air cover. Anyone copy?" Nothing but the howl of rain and a dying beacon pulse. The valley around them glowed each time lightning hit the peaks, painting the battlefield in white veins. She wasn't flying to survive the storm. She was flying to end it. Elise pushed the throttles forward. The A-10 rolled, tires slicing through sheets of water. Tower lights flickered once, then died. In that blackout, she became motion itself. The GAU-8 cannon below her hummed as the barrels spun an idle, an animal stretching before the hunt. At 200 feet, the hog lifted, heavy and deliberate. Rain hammered the wings. The nose wavered, but her grip didn't falter. She leveled through turbulence so violent it blurred the horizon into pure gray. "Specter 1, this is Falcon Command. Abort mission. Signal intermittent. Return to..." The transmission cut off mid-word. Silence. She switched to manual nav. The map dissolved into static, but she remembered the terrain, the ridgeline she'd flown 100 times before. Below her, the valley's pulse was fading fast. On the ground, the SEAL medic looked up, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" Through the thunder, a low vibration answered. The sound no one ever forgets. The hog. Elise descended into the storm's gut, instruments blind, horizon gone. Wind ripped across the fuselage, lightning crawled along the wings like living veins. She locked on to the faint emergency transponder and dove, trusting muscle memory and instinct over machine. "Specter 1 to Ghost Team, hold position." Static. Then a whisper. "Copy, barely." She smiled, tiny, fierce, and toggled the armament panel. Targeting failed, sensors drowned, but she didn't need them. All she needed was timing. The storm flashed white, then black again, and in that heartbeat, Falcon Command watched every screen go dark. Someone murmured, "We've lost her." The last thing the radar caught was a single blip slicing straight into the heart of the storm, and then the storm swallowed her whole. The command center was a cathedral of noise turned graveyard.
Every operator stared at black screens where Elise's signal should have been. The storm cell was pulsing like a living thing, jammed frequencies, bouncing lightning, shredded comms. A young tech whispered, "She went under cloud base. Nobody survives that altitude in this." The colonel didn't answer. His eyes tracked the last known vector on the glass board. It vanished into the red blotch labeled Storm Wall. Down below, the SEALs were trying to keep their wounded breathing. The valley was filling with water and smoke, and the air stank of cordite and ozone. Their sergeant stared at the static from the radio. "She'll come through," he said, but his voice trembled. Above them, the A-10 was fighting for its life. Every instrument blinked failure. NAV offline, HUD unstable, RPM fluctuating. Lightning illuminated Elise's face in ghostly flashes, half-shadowed behind her visor. Her hands moved with muscle memory. She trimmed the flaps manually, compensated for cross-wind, kept the hog level with one eye on the failing altimeter. She murmured to the machine like it could hear her, "Come on, girl, don't quit on me now." The canopy rattled with the sound of hail. The left engine coughed once, then stabilized. She exhaled through her teeth. A ghost signal flickered on her radar, weak but real. Coordinates matched the SEAL's last call. When the storm erased every voice, hers was the one the sky refused to silence. The valley opened below in flashes of lightning. She caught glimpses, broken ridges, burning wreckage, the blue spark of small arms fire. The SEALs were boxed in against a cliff. She flipped the safety covers on her weapons panel. The targeting pod was blind, but her instincts weren't. Elise rolled the hog on its side, cutting through the rain. The GAU-8 spun to life, whining like a beast that had been waiting too long. She squeezed the trigger for a short burst. Tracers vanished instantly into the curtain of rain, but the explosion below painted the valley in orange.
On the ground, the SEALs lifted their heads. The mountain shook. "She's here," one of them whispered. Her radio hissed. "Specter, this is Ghost Team. We see your fire. Guidance impossible." She answered anyway, steady as a metronome. "Then keep your heads down. Thunder's inbound." Lightning struck close enough to throw sparks across her panel. Alarm screamed. The radar died again. She flew by feel now. The subtle tremor in the stick, the drag of the storm on the wings. The hog was bleeding speed, fighting gravity. Below, the SEAL medic saw something impossible. Two white flares cutting a path through the storm like falling stars. They weren't distress signals. They were her mark. Old-school manual alignment. She dove through the storm's heart. Wind shear slammed her sideways, but she corrected, pushed the throttles full forward, and let the cannon sing again. The sound wasn't thunder. It was deeper, rolling, primal. The storm seemed to answer back. For a moment, the entire ridge vanished in smoke and light. Then, only rain remained. In the command center, someone shouted, "Contact reestablished." A faint ping blinked on the screen. Then another, stronger. The colonel leaned in, whispering, "She made it through." But before anyone could celebrate, a second alert flared across every console. Missile lock detected. The radar painted one cold, bright line, coming straight for Specter. The missile warning tone sliced through the cockpit, an electronic scream, steady and merciless. Elise's eyes narrowed behind her visor. The storm had masked her heat signature until now, but the flash of her last run must have betrayed her. She scanned her instruments. The radar was blind, useless. Her only guide was instinct and static. "Falcon Command, Specter 1, defensive break." No answer, just the drumming rain and the shrill wail of the lock tone. Below, the SEALs were crawling through the mud, dragging the wounded across broken stone. The thunder above sounded different now, rhythmic, mechanical, alive.
Their sergeant raised his head. She's still up there. In the control room, the colonel watched the blip reappear, weak, flickering, but alive. That's her, he muttered. That's Specter. The ops tech stared in disbelief. Sir, she's in the middle of a SAM corridor. Elise kicked the rudder, rolled the hog into the clouds, and deployed flares, each one a dying sun in the dark. The missiles streaked past, lost in the chaos. Another tone shrieked instantly after it. 2 launchers, different bearings. Of course there are 2, she whispered, her voice calm. She pulled high into the storm belly. Rain turned to ice, slamming against the canopy like shrapnel. The engines growled, straining. The A-10 was never meant for altitude battles. It was a low-flight brawler, a storm crawler. But she made it climb anyway, coaxing the beast through the freezing dark. Machines failed in the storm, but the storm had never met Specter.
Her fingers danced across the switches. ECM burst, manual chaff, throttle forward. The first missile flashed by, shredding vapor in its wake. The second came from below, slicing through the turbulence like a knife through smoke. Elise saw it for half a heartbeat. White, perfect, inevitable. She dumped the nose, killed the throttle, and let the hog drop like a falling anvil. The missile overcorrected and detonated above her, rocking the cockpit in white fire. Warnings blared, and every panel lit up red. The left engine sputtered, then caught again, limping but alive. She gritted her teeth. Good girl, just stay with me. Far below, the SEALs watched the sky flash, thinking it was the end. Then came the sound, low, guttural, echoing through the valley. The hog had survived. You hearing that? One whispered. She's still fighting it. Elise leveled out barely 200 feet above the ridge. Trees whipped past, blurred by speed and rain. Her radar altimeter was dead. She flew by sound now, the echo of her own engines bouncing off the mountains. The ground was close enough to taste. Ghost Team, this is Specter 1. Mark your smoke. I'm coming back around. Static. Then, faintly, smoke's gone. We're out. You'll never see us. Elise smiled. Then I'll just have to guess. The command center was chaos. She's below radar coverage, shouted an analyst. The colonel leaned forward, eyes on the faint trace of her course. She's doing this blind, manually. Outside, the storm began to split, 2 layers of cloud peeling apart like curtains under invisible pressure. Through that chasm of rain, the A-10 carved its path, guns armed, wings shaking. Falcon Command, the tech cried. She's going back in. The colonel whispered, then God help whatever's in her way. Elise's thumb rested on the trigger. Lightning flared ahead, silhouetting an entire convoy moving toward the stranded SEALs. Her targeting systems were dead. Her timing had to be perfect. And as the storm closed over her again, she whispered, Specter, firing blind. The valley was a hollow lung, breathing smoke, rain, and silence. Every sound had drowned beneath the storm, until only the hiss of water against stone remained. The SEALs huddled together beside their wounded, waiting for the final strike. One of them murmured, no one flies through that. The sergeant didn't look up. She does. Miles above, the A-10 groaned under the strain. The left engine coughed black smoke. The right was vibrating at a dangerous pitch. Rain hissed through microfractures in the canopy, cold on Elise's cheeks. Her eyes were fixed ahead, nothing but swirling gray, lightning veins and memory. She knew the terrain better than her instruments did. She could almost feel where the ridge was, where the team waited. She toggled the armament panel. The targeting pod blinked once, blind but breathing. Come on, just a glimpse.
The display flickered to life for 3 seconds, enough to paint a convoy of vehicles moving along the ravine, heat signatures clustering near the cliff. That was them, and the enemy.
She exhaled slowly. Okay, ghosts, I see you. Below, the SEAL medic shouted over the storm, "Movement on the ridge!" They could barely hear one another, but everyone turned their faces skyward. Through the rain's roar came the faintest hum, deep and mechanical, like the earth remembering thunder. "She's back," said the sergeant, voice cracking. Elise aligned the hog for the run. The HUD was useless, but the feel of the stick, the drag on the wings, the rhythm of the crosswind, it all spoke to her in a language older than radar. She locked her jaw and rolled the aircraft 90 degrees. The mountains tilted, and for a heartbeat she was flying sideways through liquid sky. The storm hadn't broken her. It had merely taught her how to roar louder. She leveled out, throttle full. The GAU-8 began to spin, a predator clearing its throat. The first burst tore through the rain like a heartbeat made of fire. Tracers disappeared instantly, swallowed by the dark, but the explosions below painted orange ghosts across the valley walls. In Falcon Command, operators leapt to their feet. "Specter 1 is active. She's engaging." "Impossible," the colonel muttered. "At that altitude she should be—" He cut himself off. "She's under the cloud base. She's right on top of them." Inside the cockpit, Elise fought the recoil. The hog bucked and shook, but she kept her line steady. "One more," she said, and squeezed the trigger again. The ridge erupted, fire rolling down like liquid metal. When the smoke cleared, half the convoy was gone. Her instruments screamed warnings: hide pressure low, fuel crit, temp limit. She silenced them all. "We're not done yet." The SEALs were shouting into the comms now. "Specter, you cleared the ridge. Launchers down. We're pulling the wounded." Static answered, then her voice, faint but composed. "Copy that. Stay low. I've got one pass left." She turned the hog back into the storm. The engines howled. She felt the strain in her bones. On the monitors at command, her signal dropped again. "We lost her altitude," yelled a tech. The colonel gritted his teeth. "No, we didn't lose her. She's going in again." Rain hammered the fuselage, lightning crawling along the wings in living veins of white. Elise's face was lit in strobes, half angel, half ghost. She whispered to the machine, "You and me, old girl, one more time." She rolled into her dive. The world outside became a blur of wind and fire. Her right hand trembled on the stick, left on the trigger. The GAU-8 came alive once more, louder than thunder, deeper than fear. Below, the SEALs flattened themselves in the mud as the mountains erupted. Every impact echoed back through the valley like a war drum.
When the cannon stopped, the silence that followed felt impossible. The rain hissed softer now, as if the storm itself was catching its breath. Smoke drifted in thin ribbons over the ridge where the convoy had been. Nothing moved. The sergeant rose slowly, lowering his rifle. "Targets neutralized." He tilted his head toward the clouds. "Specter, we owe you." That was when they heard it, a faint whining hum overhead, changing pitch. The medic frowned. "That's not thunder." Through the thinning clouds, a dark silhouette tumbled, a winged shape trailing smoke, spiraling like a wounded bird. The A-10. "Command!" the sergeant shouted into his mic. "She's hit! She's going down!" In the control room, alarms flared again. "Specter 1 is losing altitude."
The colonel's voice cracked for the first time that night. "Pull up, Elise! Pull up!" But her radio was silent. Through the last break in the storm, the SEALs saw her hog gliding, powerless toward the river valley. Its nose level, wings steady, as if even gravity respected her. Then lightning struck behind it, and she vanished into the rain. The river valley had become a mirror for the sky, black, fractured, and trembling with light. The hog dropped through the clouds like a wounded animal, smoke streaming from one wing, lightning clawing at its tail. Inside Falcon Command, every monitor was pure static. Operators stood frozen as a faint, flickering blip reappeared at the edge of the radar grid. "She's gliding," whispered the youngest tech. "No power readings. She's riding the storm." The colonel leaned closer, his knuckles white on the console. "Specter 1, this is Falcon Command. Confirm status." Only rain answered. Then faintly through the static, "Losing thrust. Visual on the valley. Team located." The signal died again. Below, the SEALs crouched among shattered trees, drenched, cold, but alive. The medic was binding a wound with a strip of soaked cloth when he heard the thunder change pitch, deeper, slower, deliberate. He looked up. Through the clouds, a shadow cut across the lightning, its wings broad and heavy. "She's still flying. She's coming back." Up there, Elise fought the hog like a living creature. The left engine was gone completely. The right flickered like a candle on the edge of collapse. Every gauge was screaming in red. Her gloves were soaked through, her grip slipping on the throttle. She flew by muscle memory alone. The subtle tremor of the stick, the pull of gravity against her ribs, the heartbeat of the storm echoing in her bones. If she was going down, she was going to make the sky remember why it feared her name. She switched the landing gear lever. Nothing. Hydraulics gone. The river valley stretched ahead, a narrow band of white foam between the dark ridges. Her altimeter spun, useless. Elise exhaled. Manual all the way. She reached for the flap override and forced the lever down. The aircraft shuddered, obeying her will, one last time. At command, voices overlapped in panic. "She's below 500 feet. No terrain data. She can't see where she's going." The colonel slammed his headset against the table. "He's not looking. He's feeling it." The SEAL sergeant cracked a chem light and raised it high, its green glow barely visible through the downpour. "Here!" he shouted into the radio. "Specter, green light, riverbank north side." Static. Then a whisper. "Copy." Elise saw it, one trembling point of color through the black rain, a single heartbeat of hope. She lined the hog up with the valley floor, angle shallow, speed bleeding fast. She knew the math. At this descent rate, she had one chance, maybe two. No eject, no backup, just her and the machine. She keyed the mic again. "Falcon Command, tell Ghost Team, mission accomplished." Her breathing slowed. The rain outside softened, muffled by the hum of her dying turbine. She pressed the throttle forward one final time, eyes locked on the river ahead. The hog hit the water like a stone skipping across glass. First impact, then bounce, then drag. Spray exploded upward in silver arcs, each one illuminated by the last lightning flash. The second bounce tore the landing gear clean off, but the fuselage held. The river caught her, carried her, slowed her. The cockpit filled with mist and steam. The world became white noise and motion. Then, stillness. The SEALs broke cover, sprinting through the current toward the wreck. "There!" The sergeant reached the nose first, his boots sinking into the mud.
He slammed his fist against the canopy. "Specter!" Inside, Elise's head lolled forward, blood trailing from a cut above her brow. She blinked, dazed, then reached for the latch. It jammed. She hit it again. Nothing. On the third strike, it blew open with a hiss, and cold rain flooded in. She sucked in a deep breath of night air, sharp and metallic. "Got her!" the medic shouted. Together they pulled her out, dragging her through the shallows to the embankment. The hog groaned behind them, steam pouring from its engines. It sounded almost alive, exhaling after the fight. At Falcon Command, a single green dot returned to the radar. The colonel leaned forward, eyes wide. "Specter 1 has landed," he said softly. No one applauded. They just stood there, listening to the quiet hum that replaced the static. Down in the valley, Elise sat propped against a rock, soaked and shaking, but breathing. The SEAL sergeant crouched beside her. "You just flew through hell, ma'am." She gave him a faint, crooked smile. "Yeah, and I brought it back with me." Above them, the sky was clearing at last. The first stars broke through, glittering over the still smoking wreck. Then, from somewhere beyond the mountains, a deep mechanical rumble echoed, a formation approaching fast. The sergeant looked up. "Command, we've got company." And in the reflection of Elise's visor, the stars flickered out once more.
The sound came first, low, rolling, not thunder, but engines, the kind that carried authority. The SEALs turned toward the horizon, rifles instinctively raised, though no one was sure why. The storm had finally broken, leaving the air wet and metallic. Lightning flickered only far away now, revealing the wrecked A-10 resting half in the river, its fuselage glowing faintly from the heat. "Falcon Command, this is Ghost Team. We have Specter recovered, but we're hearing new aircraft inbound. Repeat, unknown contacts." Static. Then the colonel's voice cut through, calm but taut. "Negative hostile signatures. Those are ours. We scrambled search and cover when we lost her. Sit tight." The SEAL medic looked back at Elise, who was sitting upright against a boulder, helmet off, eyes half-lidded but alert. Mud streaked her flight suit. Her hair clung to her forehead, plastered by the rain. She looked more like a ghost than a pilot. He said softly, "They're coming for you." She shook her head once. "For us. I didn't come here alone." In the command center, the colonel watched the inbound rescue birds close on the coordinates. His voice dropped to a whisper, meant for no one. "You saved them, Specter, and you saved us all." Up above, the clouds parted completely. A pair of C-130s broke through first, followed by two Blackhawks cutting across the dawn. Their searchlights lanced the valley like white swords. When they swept over the downed hog, steam erupted from the cooling metal. The crews cheered over comms. "We have visual! Specter is alive!" But Elise didn't look up. She kept her gaze fixed on the river, where ripples still carried smoke downstream. "I felt it. When the systems died, the silence wasn't empty. It was alive, like the storm was listening." The sergeant crouched beside her. "What did it say?" She smiled faintly, a ghost of warmth in the cold air. "That sometimes you don't need a signal to be heard." When the world went silent, she learned to speak in thunder. The rescue teams reached them minutes later, boots splashing, voices echoing off the rocks. Medics moved in with stretchers, wrapping the SEALs in thermal blankets, checking pulses. When one of them tried to help Elise to her feet, she waved him off. "I'm good. Help them first." Her aircraft hissed behind her, one final breath escaping the engines. The hog's nose was buried in mud, its wings broken but still defiant, like an old fighter refusing to kneel. The rescue chief glanced at it,
and muttered, "Never seen one come out of a storm like that." The colonel's voice came through again, softer this time. "Specter 1, this is Falcon Command. The board is yours." Elise keyed the mic, her voice a whisper wrapped in static. "Falcon, tell the tower I'm bringing her home, piece by piece."
From the helicopters above, cameras caught the scene. The valley scarred and smoking, the hog resting amid the rain, and the small figure of a pilot standing motionless beside it. By the time the footage reached the command center, someone had already muted the room. They just watched in silence. Back on the ground, dawn began to spread. The river shimmered silver now, not black. The SEAL medic handed Elise a water bottle. She took it, nodding once. "You shouldn't have stayed," he said. "You shouldn't have been left behind," she answered. For a long time, none of them spoke. The storm had emptied itself, leaving only the sound of dripping water and distant rotor blades. A single shaft of light broke through the clouds, striking the A-10's canopy. It glinted once, then faded. Falcon Command confirmed retrieval at 0600 hours. The colonel closed his report with a single note. Pilot Specter returned with 0 comms, 1 engine, and full mission completion. Then he paused, adding a second line. Recommend permanent call sign retention. The technicians didn't understand the silence that followed in the room, the kind that feels like reverence. Down in the valley, Elise stood one last time before boarding the evac bird. The medic offered his hand. She ignored it, pulling herself up by the helicopter's skid. The crew chief leaned out to help her, but she simply nodded. "Keep her nose east," she said. "Let her see the light." As the helicopter rose, the wrecked A-10 grew smaller beneath them, bathed in the golden hue of morning. Steam drifted upward, like the last breath of a dragon. The hog cooled in foam, and above the valley it had saved, the sky finally remembered her name.